I'm Nancy Spencer, a member of the Unitarian Universalist Congregation of Rockville, lovingly referred to as UUCR, and a member of the Worship Arts team. It is an honor to kick off November's theme, history. I am blessed to have Ginny Folsom and Wayne Crump, also members of the Worship Arts team, here with me today. They have agreed to join me on the journey because when I accepted this assignment, I knew in my heart of heart, in my very being, that mine would be an unconventional approach. Now, I firmly believe that history plays a very important role in who we are and how we define ourselves, because without our ancestral history, we would not have a foundation upon which to build our culture and plant the roots of our future. I'd like to begin by telling you a story. Once upon a time, there was a scientist who was interested in exploring perspective. He wanted to know if one's personal perspective influenced their experiences of reality or the truth. He blindfolded 4 men and positioned them around an unidentified animal. He instructed them one by one to reach out and touch the animal, to describe it and to identify it. Each man was told to keep blindfolds on, to listen to the other's descriptions, and not to interrupt. The first man reached out to touch the animal. He quickly pulled his hand back and said, "Oof, this beast is rough and feels dry. I think it's ugly too. I don't like it." The second man reached out and touched the animal, and he lay his head on its side as he smiled and gently wrapped his round arms around the animal. He said, "What? You are wrong, my brother. This animal is so soft, gentle. It breathes a loving warmth. I think I'd like to cuddle up with it at night to keep me comforted and warm." The third man refused to reach his hand out at all. He crinkled his nose up, turned his head and turned away from the animal. He said, "You both must be crazy. I'm not going to touch that beast. It smells so foul, I think I'll vomit." The fourth man reached out, and when he touched it, he said, "You're all wrong. This animal is cold as ice and as hard as a rock. I don't even think it's alive." The men argued back and forth, claiming he was right and the others were wrong. They kept repeating what they knew to be true from their perspective. That's the word again, perspective. Fists were shaken, tempers flared as each man defended his truth, his whole truth, and nothing but his truth. They couldn't agree. Finally, the scientist said, "I've heard enough. Take off your blindfolds, and what do you see?" With blindfold removed, their eyes widened as they saw the animal for the first time, even though their descriptions were different from their own perspectives. They were all collectively right, yet all individually wrong, because each perspective did not provide the whole picture. "It's an elephant," they shouted. Well, the first man had stood at the elephant's side and had felt its rough and tough hide. The second man stood at the elephant's trunk and had felt its warm breath and comforting soft sides. The third man stood behind the elephant's tail, and, well, we know what he smelled. The fourth man stood by a tusk, which was as cold as ice and hard as a rock. Each man had had a different experience of the same animal. Each held his own perspective and believed it to be true, and the others to be wrong. So let's let that thought of perspective ruminate in our minds for a bit. Well, I'll tell you a little bit about me and this journey we are on together. Anyone who knows me understands that I am always up for a challenge. And history was a challenge for me because I never liked it. It represented the tedious memorization of facts, dates, and names of famous dead people gone long before my time, and reminded me of dusty libraries and moldy books. I saw history from my own perspective. But I can also take that Western-trained mind of mine, my rational thinking self, put it up on the shelf and be open to possibilities. But as I racked my brain for ideas, I questioned whether I could do this topic justice. But then the weirdest thing happened. The universe sent me a sign and confirmed that I knew from my heart space what I knew from my heart space to be true. A message flashed on my iPhone. It said, "When you believe, you are halfway there." All I needed to do was trust. And I did believe. I was already more than halfway there, and I knew I had been sent this challenge, this opportunity, so I could deepen my understanding of history. I suddenly became even more open to the possibilities. Now, I could talk to you about the civil rights movement, but I won't. Or I could talk to you about the significance of the January 6th insurgents, but I won't do that either. But what I will do is take you on a journey outside the box, outside the Western mindset, and explore not the why or what, but how history reflects not only our collective ancestral past, but also our connection to divine light, a universal energy that transcends generations and is our spirituality. First, let's look at the word history. History is derived from the Greek word histor, Histor, which means learned, wise man, and from the word historia, Historia, a verb meaning finding out or not or to know. So historia is a wise, learned man finding out or to know what he did not already know. According to the German philosopher George Hegel, the only thing that we learn from history is that we learn nothing from history. True? I don't know. Let's see. History has been passed down from generation to generation by word of mouth, allowing storytellers to change, embellish, or omit facts as it suited them best. Written records appear late in man's existence, about 5,000 years ago in Egypt and ancient Sumer with the Sumerians. In the early 1800s, the invention of the camera and photography became another means to record history. Regardless of how we record it, one thing is certain. Even if, as Hegel claims, we learn nothing from history, we do learn that my history and my knowing may not be your history and your knowing, and vice versa. In fact, they are probably very different. So then I began to wonder, well, why history and not her story or my story? And how about our story or their story? Well, he, sitting right there, he has history, and she, right there, she has her history. And you've all heard a little bit about my story. Then all of us here gathered in this sacred place where we come to enjoy fellowship together, we have our story. And for those people outside of these beautiful glass walls, well, that's their story, and we'll leave it up to them to tell us about it, because after all, it is their story. Now, history can be defined as a collective memory that is communal to our story and their story, and at the same time, a deeply personal my story, his story, and her story. It is the essence of who we believe we are, both as a people and as individuals. But I still questioned history in its representation of events, because I never trusted that what I was taught was the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth. Think for a moment about the truth in the depiction of Jesus. As a child, I was taught that Jesus was a blonde, blue-eyed, white man with an aquiline nose. His portrait hung in our classrooms, and he hung on the cross above the altar. And he should be, there he is. Handsome man, right? But was this the truth? No, that's not the real image of Jesus. Revelation chapter 1, line 14 through 15, offer a clue that this depiction was incorrect. The verses state, Jesus' skin was a darker hue, and his hair was white as snow, woolly in texture. His eyes were like a flame of fire. His feet were like burnished bronze, refined as in a furnace. Now, it's important to note that white hair in the Bible was something to be desired and appreciated. Gray and white hair represented a crown of splendor or attained in the way of righteousness. So where did the blonde hair come from? And then the blue eyes. Well, a group of British scientists, assisted by Israeli archaeologists, recreated what they believed to be a more accurate depiction of the face of Jesus. By using forensic anthropology and other methods to solve crimes, Richard Neves, a medical artist, studied biblical references and used 3 well-preserved skulls, from the time of Jesus, along with specialized computer programs to recreate, voila. If this modern-day depiction is correct, or the truth, then the real Jesus would have looked like a Middle Eastern Jew with brown skin, coarse hair, brown eyes, and broad features. But why did history get it so wrong? Because it is human nature to depict heroes and events in the context and culture in which we live and are most comfortable. In other words, in the European Middle Ages, Jesus looked like a contemporary white European man because the white European Christians felt most comfortable with this image. A blonde, blue-eyed, white man reflective of a European phenotype in the culture was less threatening and thus more acceptable than the brown-skinned, coarse-haired man Jesus really was. And let's face it, my friends, Jesus was not the angelic persona we were taught in Sunday school. Undoubtedly, he was a leader, and he was a religious man. Many considered him to be a rabbi because of his ministerial teachings. But the reality is that he was considered by many to be a social outcast, a radical, and a troublemaker. We could say he made good trouble, but trouble nonetheless. Living on the fringes of society, Jesus traveled with thieves, kept company with ladies of the night, and incited possibly the biggest and most influential revolution ever known to mankind. A revolution so profound that it changed man's religious beliefs forever in the name of Christianity. Is that what you were taught? I wasn't. Out of curiosity, what would Jesus look like if he were alive today? Given what we know about his ethnicity and his livelihood, a modern-day Jesus might look like... That's right. He would be a blue-collar, African, Middle Eastern carpenter, nice man, hard worker. This modern-day Jesus appears to be intelligent with a very welcoming energy, but is neither white, nor blonde, nor blue-eyed. Again, how did history get it so wrong? History got it wrong because the history of Jesus was portrayed from a Eurocentric perspective. The key word being perspective. Perspective. A light bulb flashed on in my head when I realized history is a matter of perspective and is the truth from the point of view of the writer or writers in the context in which they live and feel most comfortable. Our story is written from our culture in terms that our culture can understand and accept. And your story is written from your culture and in terms that your culture can understand and accept. And often limiting perspective with a narrow focus, history is a psychosocial profile of a people and not a snapshot of events in time. Think back to the story about the blindfolded men and the elephant. Each had a limited perspective of the beast, and each one believed that his perspective was the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth. Consider that, like the four men, our personal perspectives may be the truth and real to us, but only a part of a larger puzzle. Only when we meld all of our perspectives together and turn them in the perspective melting pot will we be able to form a more comprehensive, universal perspective that is not limited to our culture, our country, or our race, but is inclusive of all mankind. Only then will we approach the truth, the whole truth and nothing but the truth. And I use the word approach because, my friends, there's never a guarantee that all aspects of the truth in our past have been uncovered and revealed. But I believe we must try. I think of history as an old fruit-bearing tree, standing tall and unwavering. The tree's roots represent our ancestral past, anchoring us firmly in place. Though hidden, these roots, our pasts, continue to morph and grow as more truths are uncovered and broader perspectives emerge, inching us closer to the universal perspective that I discussed earlier. The roots of the tree, the collective truths and perspectives, provide nourishment to sustain the tree's trunk, branches, and leaves, which are the present. It is the present that bears the fruits to see the future. If we do not bear fruit and plant seeds, we can't grow new trees in the future for our children, and mankind will cease to exist. Have you ever heard the saying, the reason why the windshield is bigger than the rear view mirror is because where we are headed is larger and has greater possibilities for us than what we left behind? In other words, if we remain stuck in the past, perseverating on the coulda, woulda, shoulda, must-have beens, tipping the scales towards past events, we run the risk of not being in this present moment and living the life given to us. And if we remain fixated on instant gratification with a me mentality, we will miss the opportunity to plan for a successful future. All three segments of our tree, past, present, and future, are vital to the survival of our race. Winston Churchill and George Santayana are credited with saying, "We must learn from the past so that we do not repeat the same mistakes in the future." And I agree. We must learn from our ancestral pasts and thank them for their wisdom and forgive them for their indiscretions. But then we must move on with life because possibilities are in front of us. The possibilities that the universe provided us are endless, and I believe divinely inspired. Remember that sign the universe sent to me? When you believe, you are halfway there. All we have to do is believe, and we are halfway there, and the possibilities are endless. So how do we move forward from past mistakes and tragedies? How can mankind possibly see, understand, and accept every single worldly perspective as our own truth and develop a comprehensive worldwide perspective that is inclusive? Some of us can't even agree on the elephant. Well, I think the solution is simple, and it doesn't lie in political and religious boardrooms. It lies within all of us. If you believe, like many do, that our divine energy is eternal and that this physical self is temporary, then history transcends the physical as in an experience of that divine spiritual energy, which means that history lives on eternally. Imagine if we could step away from the physical, the flesh and bones, the outer shells that are our body, and then at a purely spiritual level, my soul to your soul, my being to your being, and look deep inside each other to the essence of who we are, releasing our individual and communal perspectives, striving towards that universal perspective. I believe we would see our collective, divinely inspired universal energy held lovingly in our souls. We would see no race, we would see no color, no sexual orientation. We would see no religion and no political affiliation. We would see no prejudice and no hatred. If right now we could strip away our outer shell, you would not see me up here today as a Cape Verdean American woman of color. You would not see me as a heterosexual female, nor as a liberal, nor as a healer, nor a spiritual intuitive. What you would see is the essence of who I am, the real me, a bearer of divine light, filled with our collective universal energy in its purest form, an unconditional love, a profound love that I have for all of you. Sacred and divine, the universe provides us with this endless source of this light, this love designed to be shared and embraced, to provide comfort and support, to be spread and multiplied. And the good news is, it's not only in me, it is in all of you, because we are all bearers of divine light and unconditional love. As we gather in this sacred space to meditate, pray, and communicate with the God of our own understanding, can you feel the light? Can you feel the universal energy, our collective unconditional love? Can you feel its vibration surrounding us, soothing us, comforting us, and providing support and guidance to us all? Can you feel the excitement as our love for each other grows in strength and blossoms in fellowship? Just close your eyes and open your hearts and feel, really feel the loving energy flowing through you, pouring down on us like a gentle, sparkling rain, showering from above. Can you feel it in your heart and in your soul as the essence of who you are? I can feel it. I feel it in my heart. And I can feel my unconditional love for all of you. And I can feel your sacred energy, your unconditional love, reaching out to me, joining together with mine, boosting us both up and lovingly supporting us every day. So let's not get bogged down by the details of our individual perspectives. Let's be open to endless possibilities. Let's not constantly adjust the focus in the rearview mirror. Let's live the moment and plan for what is to come. Let's prove that George Hegel, that German philosopher who believed we learn nothing from history, was wrong. Because history has taught us something very important. I believe it has taught us that regardless of our earthly cultural biases, regardless of our physical differences, and regardless of our individual and collective perspectives, our history is man's experience at its purely spiritual level and is an unconditional love, a love that is meant to be freely shared today and spread abundantly into the future. My friends, my energy, my unconditional love is learning to join with yours right here and right now. Carpe diem. Seize the day. Soak it in. Bask in its glory. Treasure it. And then send it out to others. May you go in peace, surrounded by his light and love. Let your light shine freely as it was meant to be. Namaste.